Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where today is a first for me driving this, the new Acura NSX Type S. Now of course for me it's a Honda Acura over here in the US, only 350 of them in the world. This belongs to my friend 458 Destroyer and we're currently in his garage and yeah, look at the cars that are around me. This is fairly breathtaking, but I've chosen this in the bright thermal orange pearl paint today to go and take for a drive. The Type S being a significantly reworked, upgraded version of the Acura NSX, the latest generation that certainly caused some contention when it was introduced, but a car that I've always really enjoyed since I drove it initially at the first test drive and drove one as well out in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. But the Type S is a step on. We've got new suspension, we've got more power, and we've got a whole lot of noise in 458 Destroyer's car as well. So let's have a quick walk around, go through the car, then it's time to get it out onto some glorious roads here in Tennessee to go and enjoy and see what the Acura NSX Type S is all about. When the new NSX launched, it was a very different car to the NSXs that had come before it, and of course that was something a lot of people spoke about. But the Type S has arrived as effectively the final version of this particular car. Of course, it's detecting I've got the key, popped out the handles as I walked around it. But I actually saw the car when it was presented, well, just shy of 2 years ago at Quail, when it was introduced to the world, and learnt a little bit about it, but I've never previously driven one, and I'm fascinated to get a feel for it myself. I always like the more dynamic, more hardcore, turned-up versions of cars, and that's exactly what this is. A completely new look, though, as you can see at the front. The bumper has been heavily reworked, rakes down more towards the nose, completely different layout for the intake, for the cooling and for the styling of it, and it looks mean. It's a car that very much competes with the likes of the R8s, the Corvettes, that kind of thing, and you get a bit of that as well from the design, but it's based around this hybrid V6. You've got the turbocharged V6 engine along with 3 electric motors, 1 to the combustion engine, 2 up front, similar format to what we've seen on the likes of the Porsche 918 Spider. In fact, many of the team who had worked on that car came over to Acura to work on this car, but even nowadays on the SF90 Stradale and those kind of cars as well. So it's a format that gives you blistering acceleration. 0 to 60 miles an hour is about 2.5 seconds. Yes, 2.5 seconds, 4-wheel drive, dual clutch gearbox, everything that you would need for that. And it looks the part in this very, very, very bright orange paint. Orange pearl or orange peel, it feels like when you're looking at it as well. So let me come through. You've got all of these cutaways, openings for cooling and airflow, the contrast with the gloss black sections as well, the Type S badging, new wheels on the car, obviously some big brakes as well. Inside, check this out. Cloaked in nice materials, well presented, got the carbon on the steering wheel inlay, loads of different controls, and in fact I'm going to step in and get this started because the noise that this car makes is really quite something. 458 Destroyer has done wonderful things with this car, so we will get it started very quickly. Give me a second, foot on the brake, press the magic button, take a listen to this. Not bad, hey? You weren't expecting that out of one of these. The cars, as they are stock, are not particularly loud, it has to be said. That's something that's heavily improved on this particular example. There's a lot I'd like to show you about this interior, and also the engine bay and that kind of thing as well, because it looks amazing. But let's get it straight on out, because the roads are beckoning, we've got lovely weather, some amazing roads to go and drive, and a wonderful car to go and find out about. Super rare limited cars, things like this. Check out exclusive Car Registry. You'll be able to find out loads of information about the different models, everything from the Acura NSX Type S to the likes of the Lexus LFAs like the Nürburgring edition here, the Porsche Carrera GTs, LaFerraris, F40s, 599 GTOs, you name it, and plenty more all over at exclusive Car Registry. You can see where cars have been, different specifications, loads of details and information. So check out exclusive Car Registry. I think you'll find it really interesting for things like this. Anyway, on with the drive. Let's go completely off the cuff here then. Jumped in the car, learning it as I go. It starts in sport mode. Obviously you have a few different driving modes. It kicks in and out of the engine all the time. You've got a 9-speed auto gearbox, but the way that it does it is so smooth in the background, and that's what I remember being so impressed by with the regular Acura Honda NSX of the newest generation. It just happens. You don't need to know what's going on. It's like the 918. They just worked it and engineered it that it's unobtrusive, it's just there. You can turn it into quiet mode, which will effectively then drive on EV. That's your EV mode for fully electric driving, if that's the direction you want to head in. And even in this, it's pretty nice, you know, it's quiet, it's calm. It kicks it back in if you give it some throttle, but otherwise it's just wafting along and driving really quite well. Go the other way from Sport and you find yourself in Sport Plus, where of course everything dials up nicely. And the way it goes up and down the gearbox, the way it sounds as well with this setup on 458 Destroyer's car, this is really, really impressing me. It feels like a very quick A to B machine down these kind of roads, you know, blasting through a little bit of the countryside. If you really want to get a move on, this is going to get you to your destination very, very efficiently. Stretching it if you like, you know. And listen to it. The 6-cylinder has a glorious rasp. The steering feel is heavy, but not too heavy. Not in the way, say, the STO, when you put it into Corsa mode, Trofeo mode even, dials it up and becomes too heavy. The gearbox, as you can hear, is doing exactly what I want it to. Very Ferrari-esque, I would say, in that style. This is a really nice start, and the firmer you are on the brake pedal, the quicker it shifts down through the gears as well. And I'm looking out over the front at the bright orange of this thing, which stands out from a mile away. Gosh, it gets a move on. You hear some lovely flutters as well from the turbos as you lift off. The sounds are really nice. I do understand that the stock car doesn't quite have the same noise to it, atmosphere to it, shall we say, but it feels down here beautifully at home. I'm really, really impressed again, and I thought I would be. I like driving this a lot. So there are 350 cars, 300 of those allocated to the US, 30 to Canada, 20 to Japan. They weren't available back in the UK, so I've obviously never been able to drive one where they would be badged as Honda as opposed to Acura. But the Type S is this link back to obviously the Type R and the Type S of the older models. Again, this time around, there hasn't been a Type R, but it's the most powerful road-going Acura Honda to date, and of course it's going to be reserved for their supercar. I think we can call it a supercar. It's top spec trim. It's that top end of sports car, entry level supercar in the likes of the 911s and the Audi R8s and the Corvettes and those kind of things. But it did start from $187,000 US, which is a whole lot of money. It's a lot more than, say, a Corvette Z06 is of the C8 generation. So it's really, really punching in that perspective. But there's some clever technology going on here. What you have to remember is this is basically technology like you find in the Porsche 918 Spider for a tenth of what a Porsche 918 Spider costs you. And like I said, it gets down these roads with remarkable confidence and composure. That's what's really impressive about it. The brake pedal, not too much feel at the start of the pedal travel. It comes more into its own when you're further down onto the pedal. Obviously you've got a few burbles and things going on, not too artificial either, so I'm pleased with that. I probably prefer a slightly less chunky steering wheel and slightly less heavy steering feel, but it does change obviously all the settings and things as you go up and down through the modes. And you can hold the driving mode selector, the dynamic mode selector to the right, and you find yourself in track mode, which completely turns everything up to the max, and you get the most possible sound, the most possible feel. I'm glad we found some smooth tarmac that twists back and forth to enjoy this as much as possible, because I mean, I haven't felt the need to go manual yet. Obviously in track it's holding the gears probably a little bit too long for my liking on the road. I feel slightly antisocial. But let's go manual. Let's press the DM selector in the center and start using the shift pedals. They're slightly stretched around the back of the wheel. They're not as easy to reach as those that you'd find in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something like that. But remember, this is also a car that's built very much with daily driving in mind, just using in a general way, not just going out for full-on dynamic, hardcore driving behind the wheel. But man, so far, this is actually brilliant. They've made a really good car here. Like I say, I always liked the regular NSX. I know a lot of people thought it was overpriced and too heavy. It does a nice job of hiding how heavy it is, and nothing like obviously the previous NSXs. And that's probably been one of the biggest bugbears for many people, but we're seeing that so much now. You know, a new Defender is nothing like an old Defender. A Mustang can now be an electric SUV, as strange as that one is. And just these general changes in what cars are about. And the NSX was always a bit of a leader in terms of its tech at the time, even though it was a manual, very different setup, obviously no hybrid electrification to be bothered about back at the time. Whereas nowadays, that's very much the thing. And I really like this setup because you get this, the very early acceleration out of corners if you want, along with a little bit of silent driving if you want, along with being able to run off charge that you get from home if you want. But then on the other hand, if you want emotion, if you want noise, if you want to feel the car, you can do this. You can enjoy it on 7,500 RPM. It's really quick. It's really, really, really quick. And that's where it isn't lacking. You know, it's got plenty of that, plenty of fun. I'm actually really, really liking it. I think this is going to be one that's interesting to watch in the future because really the new NSX was the first proper hybrid new generation supercar. It was the first to really do this. You know, now obviously we have these in abundance, the SF90, the 296, the Acura, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. But this was, well, you could say that this is the final version of the first to do it. The first to really bring this tech in line and available really for anybody to walk in and buy. And they made a few thousand NSXs, I believe. So it's really only the last 10% or something like that, which are these Type S's, which make this a really special thing. And down here, like I say, I can't repeat it enough. It's a very, very fun car to drive down this kind of road. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, there are a few small things that can be improved here and there, but you throw it into a corner like that, and boy, does it reward you. It's good. It's a good car. To dive into a little bit more of this then, be a bit more technical about it, we've got a 3.5 litre twin turbocharged V6 behind us. That's now been turned up to 520 horsepower for a total of 600 versus 573 that you had in the regular NSX. So a 27 horsepower increase, not necessarily huge swathes by any stretch of the imagination. Torque is up as well to 492 pounds-foot from 478. Again, not huge, huge, huge numbers, but it's more than the sum of those parts because of course there's some weight savings, lighter materials that are used. There's the rework to the suspension system, which is where when you throw it through a corner like this, it really dials into its own and becomes something that gives you so much feedback. It's a comfortable place to be, you know, while we're just cruising along. Inside here, it's really nice. The cabin is spacious enough, the dashboard is nicely away from you, the seats are comfortable. Feels a little bit like this tech is slightly older generation. It's not the latest and greatest, I'm not going to lie, but I'm enjoying driving it in either Sport or Sport Plus mode. I don't feel like I have to turn it all the way up like you do in some cars, and especially when you hit the manual button and start dropping down some gears, because it gives you such a nice sound. The shifts are quick, responsive, and then when you put your foot down, it's instant. Like, it's really, really, really fast as we snake through these roads. I'm actually quite surprised by how quickly it can get us down these roads, because I didn't have in my head that this was, you know, one of the fastest cars out there, but 600 horsepower, some of which is obviously delivered instantly because of the electric side, 80 horsepower of it being electric, means that you just get a move on. You just absolutely fly down the road, and we're heading directly towards the sun, so I apologize for the total blinding. Probably I have that worse than anybody watching, but you know what? Empty road. Let's just come to a near-on standstill for a second. There's nothing around at the moment. Into first gear. You have to be at a complete standstill to be in first gear, and do a little bit of go. Apart from banging into the limiter, that's quick. That's really, really, really impressively quick. What a cool car. The engine sounds good. I mean, obviously this is based on a model that's come out years before the 296, but in many ways a similar format, this being all-wheel drive as opposed to the 296, which does it just with the electric motor on the back on the rear axle for a whopping amount of power, over 800 horsepower. But hey, this is good, this is cool, this is fun. This is more exciting than I had anticipated from it. This is more of a proper driving car. It's a great thing to throw down these roads. As these kind of hybrid setups go, it's a pretty small battery. It's a 1.3 kilowatt hour battery, which is about a sixth of what you find in the SF90, for example. You do actually, to do a proper launch, need to have the car in track mode. So turn that all the way to the right, come to a complete standstill on an empty bit of road. Then we will do launch mode ready, 3, 2, 1, go! Oh gosh. That off the line was fast. I thought it might go into automatic when you use launch mode. That was really fast. That was impressive. Kind of a little bit taken aback. I want to try it again. Drop it down to first gear. Here we go then. So you can't take first gear until you're standing still. Launch mode does that kind of double blip and then go. It's fast. It's really, really, really fast. Oh my gosh. Oh, what a thing to drive down these kind of roads. And I love looking out over the bright orange on this car. It's a really nice colour for it. It just suits the character, the shapes, the lines. This is a good thing to be part of a collection. I think that's where it will really stand out. And okay, yeah, it's expensive, you know. A nicely spec'd Z06 is like 30,000, 40,000 less than where this begins. And you get lots of things with that. You don't have to go much higher with this. But still, if you're thinking about that comparison, this is very, very, very punchy. Let me just turn it the other way. Let's go Sport Plus, down to Sport, dashboard graphics change, pop it back into auto. Let's go into quiet mode, you know. And we're on electric power. We're just cruising. Fires the engine back in. You don't get a whole lot of electric. But even at low RPMs, it's not loud, it's not too in your face, it's not too mad, it's just doing its thing, you know. We're up into 8th gear at not particularly quick, and 9th gear now, and on you go. EV power, let it cruise, uses that assistance, obviously it's working it all out in the background and just letting you have a good time enjoying the car. I think this is basically the sweet spot. In Sport Plus, in manual, just going up and down through the gears. When you're driving gently, it doesn't give you too much of an artificial kick in the back. If you're higher in the rev range, it will give you that rewarding sensation you kind of want from it, and just enjoying the drive. And it's a lovely car to just hop into and drive. You don't feel like it's overwhelming and challenging. And you know, I've just been out in 458 Destroyer's LaFerrari. Obviously the LaFerrari is a similar technical setup, you could argue, double the number of cylinders obviously, but a very, very different car to drive. And when you're in that thing, you're having to be so conscious of everything else, whereas in here you also feel like you can just sit back and let the car go. And as I said, I've always quite liked it, and I'm going to get out of this really quite impressed and liking it even more. Well, now that we're parked up back in the garage, and this thing, as you heard, sounds unbelievable for the kind of car that it is. Just to show you a little bit more around it, really. Obviously the main infotainment here, this is a little bit out of date. As I said, this is how you change your driving modes, up into Sport Plus, down through the different settings, and as you can see, we've got quiet, Sport, Sport Plus. You get some nice graphics, and when you hold it to the right, it hops up into track mode all the way there. Except obviously we've got the door open message at the moment, and then these controls for your drive and manual, neutral, reverse. You press this and park are a little bit confusing. Take a moment to get used to. A little bit of a storage cubby here. You can pop the key just in there, and another cubby as well, slightly further back down. The Type S branding that you spot all around, for example, the embroideries over there, and you've got the nice illumination of the tread plates. And these seats, as I mentioned, are also really quite nice. The Alcantara insert in the center, the NSX embroidery up top. We've got a great view through to the back. Talking of which, I need to show you that in more detail in just a moment. So let me switch this off. Seat automatically moves for help exiting the vehicle, and we'll go have a look around. I don't think that I yet mentioned the roof of the car, full exposed carbon fiber for the entire panel. In fact, a fair few bits of carbon around, including the ducktail boot lid spoiler that you have back here. No big fixed wing, but the three pieces of this, because of course in the center is the hatch, which you can open to reveal the engine. On the key, NSX Type S badging on the back, buttons on the front, press and hold to pop open the trunk. The boot, where in here, have a look at this. The full carbon fiber panels around that turbocharged 6-cylinder power plant back there looks really, really nice. Plus, in the center, you have the Type S plaque This is car 155 out of 350, precision crafted by Performance Manufacturing Center over in Ohio, as it happens, here in the United States. Still pretty practical though. You've got a fair amount of luggage space that sits behind the engine back here. Just the one slight peculiarity that everyone always mentions with these is that you have this little lump over the top here, so it slightly impacts the size of luggage that you can actually fit in back there. But all in all, it's a cool looking thing. It drives really, really well. It's super limited. What's not to love about this? You know, a super limited car like this, 350, as I mentioned. You can find them, if you'd like to know more, on exclusive Car Registry to see this, and in fact quite a few of the other cars from 458 Destroyer's collection, like the Lexus LFA Nürburgring, the LaFerrari, the F40, the Carrera GT. Quite a few numbered, very limited, very special cars. Exclusive Car Registry is always the place to check those out. But yeah, I like this. I like driving that. It was really fun, and that's been a surprise. And I often say that one of the best things is when you get in a car and you're not perhaps expecting it to be so epic, and it turns out to be amazing because you're just caught aback by it. Unlike things you expect are going to be great, get in them, and all they can really do is live up to that expectation, otherwise it's a failure. But today it is a big thanks to 458 Destroyer for the opportunity to experience the NSX Type S. Thank you for coming along for the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. But that's it for this time, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!